and welcome to this video where I'll be sharing nutrients for a smooth digestion. And the reason for this is because in the most recent Seeds of Health Highlights episode, we were talking about menstrual cycle self-care. Now, if you're not sure what Seeds of Health Highlights is, it is my mini podcast which I send to everyone who is subscribed to Yes to Healthy Eating Communications via email, and I'll be planting resources, health resources into your inbox that you may grow deep roots of well-being in spirit, soul, and body. And so each podcast episode highlights a particular topic, and the current episode is called Menstrual Cycle Self-Care. I share some testimony there, some practical lifestyle advice there, and yeah, if you'd like to sign up, you're welcome to head on over to my website. That is also why I recently shared those two recipes which only had a cooking time of 15 minutes, because one of the key messages in the menstrual cycle self-care episode was around rest. And so if you didn't want to be standing up for long periods of time, those recipes are there to make sure you're still eating well, but also being able to maximize rest. Now, another key tip for having a good time during your menstrual cycle is to prioritize having a good digestive flow. And what I mean by that is preventing constipation or preventing, sluggish stools through your diet. And so this is what this episode is based on. If you just have constipation in general, this will also be helpful for you. So yes, let's get into it. Nutrients for a smooth digestion. Number one is water. I've already done 2 videos around increasing your water intake, and you can have a look at that. But everything we talk about in this video needs water to make it all work. Water is combining with the food for great stool formation. And if you are not drinking enough, and you're just eating more of the right foods, it still won't work. So water is one of the number one things. The other thing that mainly we're talking about is increasing your fiber intake. Fiber plus water is like the keys to having smooth digestion, because especially if you're on your menstrual cycle, if you're constipated, this can sort of aggravate, cause discomfort, and just instigate more pain for you. But if things are moving smoothly for you, you're going to feel so much better in yourself. Everything we speak about today, like all things that is lifestyle habit, taking your time to implement is really important. Because if you try to go, so we're going to be talking about fiber today. If you go from having maybe in your total intake, for example, maybe if you told me what you was eating and I calculated that you're probably having 10-12 grams of fiber a day, if you go from that to 30, your body may not adjust well. You might experience wind and just discomfort, and so it's really taking things, step by step. Just like anything, people, when it comes to January, sometimes people are really motivated from the health, and which is great, of course. Health is so important. You need a good health to do much of everything in life. And so the motivation sometimes makes people think that I need to change everything immediately. And actually that stress and strain and adjustment period doesn't work well, and people often go back to old patterns, or just even the mental strain of placing yourself through trying to change everything when there are other things that you'll still have much responsibility over. It's just not the best experiences. So in the same way, everything we talk about today, don't feel like tomorrow I need to implement everything immediately, because your body might not adjust smoothly to it. The second nutrient, which is the one we're going to focus this video on, is increasing your fiber intake. Fiber is the nutrient that gives a person good stool formation. And one of the first foods that I'm going to recommend is oats. Oats are such a wonderful nutrient to soften the stool, get things going. And I wanted to mention oats especially because I remember when I was a student dietitian giving a talk to patients who have suffered a heart attack, and we were talking about nutrients to look after the heart. And at the end I asked, are there any questions? And this gentleman, he was just like, I think he was just so tired of hearing oats. He basically hated oats, and he said he tried it this way and tried it that way and not really having any fun with it. And of course, you know, with yes to healthy eating, like the way the food tastes is extremely important. And so thinking about if you've had oats before, number one, are you making oats with just water if you don't like it? Number one. But most recently, a way that I've been loving oats is I've been having it with a whole grain brown rice milk. And if you've never tried rice milk before, I wouldn't recommend just drinking it on its own because it's very sweet, like it's really sweet naturally without any sugar in the ingredients. So what that means is when you add it to foods that need a little bit of a boost, it just is delicious. And so what I've been doing most recently is I do like 50-50. So I'll use like some whole grain brown rice milk, and I'll use some semi-skimmed cow's milk and get that protein, bump up the protein of my porridge. And it is so delicious. You could think about your favorite sort of some of the foods that you really like. For example, I know people like sort of a chocolate orange flavored chocolate, and you could think about, I could make a sort of chocolate orange porridge, you know, and it doesn't even have to be porridge. You can have it in baked goods. My most recent, one of the recipes on the channel is called La Bougie Brownie, and it's a vegan, gluten-free, sugar-free brownie, and it's sweetened using dates, which is another great nutrient for fiber. And yeah, you can have, it doesn't have to actually be in a bowl of porridge. You can make some granola bars, you can make some granola baked style goods, and just getting creative. You don't have to just make it with water if the package says make it with water or just milk. You can flavor it to your taste and sort of see how other people are enjoying it. Overnight oats, that is also a delicious way to have it. And yeah, another thing is you could even make like an overnight granola, because what happens is this food like turns into a dessert, and it's so good. So it's just really finding the right recipes, finding the right combination, and being a bit open to retrialing certain foods, especially if you've not gotten well with them before. The other nutrient I'd be talking about is whole grains. Oats is a whole grain, but specifically if we talk about whole grain brown rice, whole grain brown bread, whole grain brown pasta, this is a significant increase in the fiber when you compare it to the refined alternatives. What's the difference between the one and the brown one? Sometimes people think it's like, you know, green apples and red apples. It's just another variation. However, that's not accurate. When they take grain from the farm and they start to process it, they start to remove the outer layers of the plant material to create white rice, white flour, refined flour, any sort of non-whole grain food. They actually remove nutrients from this food, which means it does behave differently in terms of, you know, its metabolic response in terms of blood sugar levels, but also it just doesn't contain the fiber that the food originally had, which would be helping you to have great digestion. And the third nutrient that I want to talk about is vegetables. So increasing your vegetable intake, you're going to see it's going to make a great difference to how your body processes food. So if you aren't sure about what quantity your meal is got in terms of vegetables, maybe it's like a stew, it's like a soup, you can always have some extra veg at lunchtime. You can always have some extra veg on the side, and that's always a great way to increase your fiber intake. Now, as I mentioned, if you do things too, if you find that you're implementing some of this advice, or you're increasing your fiber, increasing your water, and you experience any discomfort, it just might mean that you might want to take it a bit more easy. Again, even with water, if you go from drinking a few cups to 2.5 liters a day, then you're going to find you're often going to the toilet, and that could be a bit just frustrating. And so if you take things easy, step by step, then that can be part of your lifestyle, and means that when your cycle comes, constipation is not something that is causing you extra discomfort. So I hope that's been helpful to you, and I look forward to sharing with you in another video.